land of misfortune that recognized amateur soldiers' reluctant engagement in treacherous war, that brought on challenges that had never been faced before and made them all too familiar with the true nature of war. Stretching from Owa's Corner to Warrapie, the track spanned about 40 kilometers, a near marathon of harsh terrain with muddy, slippery soils and bullets piercing the air around the soldiers. The Kokoda Trail was a prominent campaign for the Australians in World War II because without the defence of the last country before the homeland, it would make Australia vulnerable. The fighting was gruesome, with many casualties. The Australian troops were unaccustomed to the conditions that Papua New Guinea offered. Soldiers fighting off the Japanese were inexperienced with war. They were known as chocos and fought alongside the 39th Battalion. The supplies were in short order and were quick to run out. The soldiers were just temporary replacements for those who were fighting in North Africa. The chocos were not adapted to the harsh reality of war in Papua New Guinea and occasionally failed to meet the expectations needed for them. The Japanese advanced with ferocity, and their only advantage was the knowledge of nighttime fighting. They were too in need of supplies and were not accustomed to the wet terrain. The lack of knowledge that the Australians had for Kokoda was aided by the locals, known as the Fuzzy Wuzzies, whom assisted in carrying the wounded to safety. They helped the Australians to regather and move through faster, track and more precisely. The Chocos were not only unfamiliar with the jungle warfare, but also rapid climate changes, tropical diseases, battling with a lack of supplies and insufficient equipment, and also had a poor knowledge of their surroundings and enemy. The Kokoda Trail claimed the lives of more than 600 Australians. There were 491 men killed in action, 66 missing and presumed dead, 1,680 men were wounded in action, and 66 of which died. The Australian troops faced a strong Japanese army, although the biggest threat in the jungle of Kokoda was not the enemy, but the constant problem of malaria and dysentery. Malaria proved to be a huge problem for both the Australians and the Japanese, causing numerous fatalities as it spread throughout the ranks. The disease hit the Australians hard first. To the end of September, the Australians had evacuated 1,752 sick men from the mountains, compared to the 343 Japanese. The main reason for this was that the Japanese came prepared for and expected a disease, although by November the amount of sick Japanese soldiers had passed that of the Australians. For the Australians on the Kokoda track, the main problem was dysentery, a painful intestinal infection that is usually caused by bacteria or parasites. An outbreak began in mid-August near Urabaywa and spread up and down the track from there, arriving at the front line at the end of the Battle of Izarova, as the Australians' retreat began. For the next 2 months, about from a force of 2 to 3,000, 30 to 80 men needed to be evacuated per day. By the 27th of December, 4,857 men had been evacuated sick from the front line. This is more than half the Australians who had fought on the Kokoda track.